Welcome one and all to our second 2023 edition of She Said, She Said. I am your co-host, Lanea Stagg, the author of the Recipe Records series of rock and roll cookbooks. They are very unique cookbooks with delicious recipes and, of course, delicious song titles to go along with the great recipes that you will find in these books. You will enjoy rattling your pots and pans in the kitchen as you read through the stories and the trivia and the song lists that go along with the recipes. They are quite the party. The Recipe Records books make a great gift for all weddings and anniversaries, mom, dad, any kind of music lover or food lover. Everyone loves food. It just has a great twist. You can also see, for Beatles fans, the Recipe Records edition is of the culinary edition. I am a little bit wonky here. It's a culinary tribute to the Beatles, of course, and it features recipes such as She Said banana bread and strawberry pie forever, my favorite recipe from Jude Kessler's wonderful mother, and Mondo Paparazzi Ziti. You are going to love all of these recipes. Check out the Recipe Records cookbook series at my website, laneastagg.com. You will also see the bad boys, the Rolling Scones. Let's spend the bite together. So be sure you take a look at all of them and follow me at Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, here they are, guys, by the way. They're those aforementioned bad boys, the Rolling Scones. And they are really cool books. This is the Recipe Records culinary tribute to the Beatles. They've got stuffed Sergeant Peppers in there. And Lanea came up with this idea long before we had listening devices that you could ask to play music. This didn't exist. So at that time, she suggested that you create a playlist that you could listen to as you were making these recipes. Well, now all you have to do is open, let's say, the 1960s edition, decide what you want to make. And here is, if you decided to make House of the Rising Bun, you could listen to Irish Bagpipes by Isla St. Clair, House of the Rising Sun by the Animals, America by Simon and Garfunkel, Georgia on My Mind by Ray Charles. She lists all of the songs for you to play while you're cooking and gives you rock and roll trivia. So I am telling you, you will love these babies, if I do say so myself. And who is myself? Jude Southerland Kessler. I have the distinction of being Lanea's trusty sidekick and the author of the John Lennon series. And for those of you who've never heard of the John Lennon series, it's a research and documented story of John's life. Started it with his birth in 1940. We are now up to almost 1966. It will go all the way through his life. You read it like a story, but everything is researched and documented. But the thing that I'm most excited about, besides our guest today, which I am extremely excited about, is the fact that we have just released an audio book of Volume 3, this big bad boy. It's a 33-hour audio book, and it's selling for like $15. So for 50 cents an hour, you can travel with the Beatles through 1963 and a part of 1964, where they come to America and they're on Ed Sullivan and New Carnegie Hall and all that stuff. Scott R. McKinley does the narration, and the man is a voices expert, and he studied the Beatles' voices, Brian Epstein's voices, Sid Bernstein, Ed Sullivan, Trini Lopez, Bobby Goldsboro, and he does them all. And it makes me, I mean, I know the story. We all know the story, but it made me break down and cry at parts. It made me fall off my chair laughing. He is so good. So I hope that you will. It's on Audible. It's on 44 different audiobook sites, including Chirp and Hobo and everything that you can think of, Apple Books, Spotify, whatever, it's there. So go out and treat yourselves to a 33 hours with the Beatles. It is really, really, really fun. So that's my scoop, Lena.
Yes, and we are so proud of you for taking on this endeavor because it wasn't very easy. It took a lot of work to make this book. And I am, the older I get, the more computer ridiculous I get. And I was able to even download Chirp onto my phone for free and buy the book, and I can listen to it on my phone. And it's a Christmas miracle because not much of all of this technology goes very smoothly for me. So you will absolutely be right there sitting in John's seat as you experience all of the madness that he was going through. It's written, it's brilliant. It's just, I can't say enough great things about it. So thank you for doing that, Jude.
It was Scott McKinley. That's all I can say. I never dreamed that he is beyond good. He did Jay Bergen's book, Lennon, the Mobster and the Lawyer. And when I heard it, I was like, oh, wait a minute. This isn't a guy doing John Lennon. This is John Lennon. That's how good he is. So
He's amazing.
Well, we are really lucky today. We have got let me prepare you guys. Our guest today not only has written many books, which we're getting ready to talk about, but right now his new book with his friend and co-author Bob Wilson is number 3 on Amazon today in Beatles books. So tell us more, Elena.
That is a great accomplishment. So Don, our very special guest today, Don Jeffries, has already published many interesting and successful books, such as Hidden History and Expose of Modern Crimes, Conspiracies, and Cover-Ups in American Politics, and also on Borrowed Fame, Money, Mysteries, and Corruption in the Entertainment World, which I'd love to read.
Yeah, and the one that really touched my heart was Bullyocracy, how social hierarchy enables bullies to rule schools, workplaces, and society at large. I mean, I just saw last night someone writing, this is what he wrote. People on some John Lennon group pages on Facebook are getting out of hand. I am tired of this and I am leaving Facebook. And Bullyocracy really takes you through how these people have been empowered to hurt other people and in many cases ruin their lives. It is a great, great book. And in his spare time, our guest today, in his spare time, he has a very prominent, very popular show on iHeartRadio, the Don and Ella Show, which I have been blessed to be on several times. And he has worked hand in hand with Bob Wilson, who Bob co-hosts several podcasts. For example, the very popular Tomorrow Never Knows with Warren Brown, and he has a new one called Don't Pass Me By. And he's in the process of writing another book, which I'm not sure that we can share. If we can, Don can tell us more about that. But they came up with this idea together, and they've been working on a book about the Paul is dead theory, which was so prevalent in the latter part of the 1960s. And it is entitled From Strawberry Fields to Abbey Road, a Billy Shears Story. And so Lena and I are so excited to welcome to the show one half of the great authorship team for this book, Don Jeffries. Hey, Don.
Thanks, Fran. That's a wonderful introduction. I don't know how to respond to that, but I appreciate it, Jude. You're too kind. This really was, it's Bob's baby. It was his idea. I helped him, and really, it was the easiest book I've ever written because it consists mostly of interviews with a whole lot of people, a lot of people in the music industry. You know, we had Laurence Juber of Wings, Steve Boone, The Lovin' Spoonful. We had Vera Ramon King, widow of one of the Ramones. We had Gregory Peck's son, Tony Peck. a Sally Kirkland award-winning actress, Susan Olsen, my buddy Cindy Brady from the Brady Bunch, lots of people like that, and lots of Beatle experts like yourself. You wrote the foreword, and you mentioned Warren Brown, who did the cover work, cover art, and so it was really they did most of the work. I can't, like I said, I write a lot of books, and this was kind of just a labor of love, and it was a lot of fun. So it's nice to see it off to a good start, and hopefully it will continue to do well.
Yeah.
Well, tell us, Bob. So was there any inspiration that pulled you into it? Was there something that you were fascinated by in this topic? Or do you remember this as a young Beatles fan?
Yeah, well,
tell
I
us
mean,
the
I
backstory.
was always a Beatles. I mean, I was very little when the Beatles came in the front, but I was, I was 7, I think, when they were on Ed Sullivan, and but I was already a fan. I remember hearing "I Want to Hold Your Hand" on American Bandstand, and I was a big music fan already. I came to things pretty early. I had my own stereo and everything, so I knew who Ricky Nelson and all these people were. I was listening to records all the time, so the Beatles really kind of were something different. And I remember waiting in line to see "A Hard Day's Night" at the movie theater. They came out, and I remember watching one Ed Sullivan. So I bought all their early records, and unfortunately, I wrote my name and phone number on too many of the jackets, so destroying their worth. But not really understanding that the concept of collectability yet. But the Beatles. I still watch. I'm still fascinated by watching Beatles videos, watching them talk, watching their. I think like Jude. And like Bob. I'm a fan of the early Beatles. The Beatlemania that I remember when I was little, and before they got more sophisticated and the critics started loving them a little bit. I like the early stuff. So this was kind of natural for me because I remember, I think it was in 1969 when I think I was, in school, and one of the kids just started talking about this Paul is Dead thing. And I hadn't heard anything about it. So it fascinated me, and so I did try to listen to Strawberry Fields Backwards and all that. I couldn't do it right, I guess, but because I didn't hear anything. But obviously the concept fascinated, and I think that it was a public relations ploy, and it worked because my interest in the Beatles had kind of died out by then, because I love the early stuff. I didn't like so much the harder stuff that they were getting into. So this kind of reignited my interest in it. What's going on here? This is pretty weird. Let me look at the clues, and that's what we talked about in the book, because the clues are real. I don't think Paul is dead, but the clues that saying here, trying to get people to think he was, are definitely real. And I have to think that they knew about them and they put them there, because some of them, like the one where you hold a mirror up and you can see on the drum, I think it's Sergeant Pepper, that I me die or something like that. I mean, that you have to really work hard to try to think of something like that. So I think that they knew about it, and we're still talking about it. Look, you're talking about over 50 years later.
Sure. So you've written investigative books in,
Yes.
your past, like On Borrowed Fame, Money Mysteries and Corruption in the Entertainment World, and Hidden History, an expose of crimes, conspiracies, and cover-ups in American history.
Right.
So you have this background. Are you an investigator? Are you
Well, I'm an armchair investigator. I'm an armchair historian. I'm a community college dropout, but I think I know about American history than the average Harvard professor does, because I actually look for the facts. But I'm interested in history. I've always been interested, and that includes entertainment history as well. That's why I wrote the On Borrowed Fame. But yeah, I'm still, I've got a couple books that I'm working on now, so I'm always writing, and it's usually in this vein because I'm interested in exposing injustice and corruption and unfairness, and that's what motivates me. So this book is a little different because there's not really any injustice or corruption, unfairness in it, I don't think, but it's just kind of a titillating tale, and it interests me because I still love the Beatles, and I find them fascinating. Again, we're talking about over 50 years after they broke up. And they may still be the most relevant band out there, as people are still talking about them constantly. And so they accomplished a lot in what, 8 years or something like that, as a as a band that was recording and putting out hits. And and now they left this incredible urban legend, or whatever you would call it, out there as well. And two of them are alive, including the man in question, Paul McCartney. So we can talk
Right.
about that a little bit if you want.
Well, tell us what you did for the research. How did you go about researching all of this material?
Well, it was easier, much easier than most of my books, because again, we had lots of interviews, and the bulk of the book are these, incredible interviews we have with mostly celebrities, and to get, their thoughts on it, and to talk about what the Beatles meant to them. To get somebody like John Provost, who played Timmy on Lassie. People remember, baby boomers remember him, and he was a huge Beatles fan. And like many out there, he was in California, so he got to see them live. So some of these people went to their concerts. That wasn't possible for someone like me. I was too little. Plus, they weren't around here. But so that was the bulk of the work. The research I did, I just generally went online and looked in some books, and I just put my own spin on things, as I usually do. I analyze things and what makes sense to me. And I talked about the history, and there is a mystery about Fred Labor, who we interviewed in the book and doesn't do many interviews. And Bob reminded me of how, what a big catch it was, because he doesn't usually do it. But he is generally given credit for inventing the clues or noticing the clues. I don't think he could have invented them, because he wasn't, producing the Beatles records, but he noticed a lot of them. But again, his story is that he was at the University of Michigan, and he heard a caller, who we don't know who that caller was, calling into the station talking about it already. And I mentioned in there too some of the background, and people can read it in my introduction, about this was already kind of floating out there. There were indications that hinting at something like this already. And so it really is. It's not based on nothing, but I have to think it was put out there purposely. So the research wasn't tough, and it was finding. Ironically, one of the guys I wanted to talk to was Joel Gilbert. He's a filmmaker, and I had him on my iProtest show last Friday. He actually asked to be interviewed, but he didn't answer my emails while we were writing this book, because he put out, and I wanted to assure with him that it was a mockumentary. He did a really good job on the Paul is dead thing, and kind of made a case that he was dead. But it was, as he said, no, that's a mockumentary. So I couldn't put him in the book, because he didn't show any interest, and then he comes on my show after the book's already published. But and then of course there's the which was associated with Joel Gilbert, the last estimate of George Harrison or something, which is supposed to be a recording of George Harrison's voice, and talking about how they conspired to do this, and they replaced him with a duplicate. And the same thing, Ringo has left supposedly, things like that. And again, that was another kind of hoax or whatever. So I don't know. And I point out there, again, although I obviously don't believe you talk about an elaborate conspiracy, what would have been involved here, but Paul McCartney, on the occasions he has addressed it, usually he's kind of not really angrily dismissed it. John Lennon and George Harrison did it a little more angrily. That's really stupid. How can people believe anything that's stupid? But then, of course, John Lennon on the White Album, he's singing in Glass Onion, here's another clue for you, all the walrus was Paul. So he's still throwing it out there. And McCartney talked to, when he was trying to excuse a couple of the really glaring things out there. One of them, of course, is when I think it was the video of Your Mother Should Know from the Magical Mystery Tour, when they're all dancing around these elaborate production numbers, and they all have red roses, and he has a black rose in his lapel. Of course, people said, okay, well, that means he's dead, right? Why would he have a black rose? But so his explanation was, people asked about, well, we ran out of red roses. Well, the problem is throughout the course of the video, they're all throwing, red roses around out of a wheelbarrow. So that can't be the explanation. And then on Abbey Road, as I'm sure you see in the iconic figure, they're all walking across the street, and John Lennon's supposed to be the preacher, and Ringo, I guess, is the mourner, and George Harrison's a gravedigger, and Paul's a corpse. He's not wearing any shoes. So people asked him about that, and his explanation made no sense. He said, well, it was a really hot day, so I kicked my flip-flops off. walk across a burning hot pavement with bare feet. So those are the kind of things that make you wonder. And again, I'm sure they're just, he's just putting it out there maybe to keep it going. I don't know. That's the only things he's really put out there on the record about it.
Wow.
You know, when the Beatles were in Hamburg, so they started at the Indra in the dark end of the Reeperbahn. And it was a horrible place. It was a strip club. Nobody wanted them there. All the guys who'd been going to the strip club were not happy that British boys were replacing the strippers. But they did such a good job that they got popular enough that in about a month they were going to move them. So they're standing on the sidewalk with their equipment, waiting for a van to come take their stuff down to the Kaiser Keller. And they say, we got to come up with a story about this, because it's boring to say we got so popular that they moved us. So why don't we say that we got so raucous and loud and wild that the little old lady that lives above the Indra had us reported to the police and had us evicted? Well, that's a great story, except for the fact that the little old lady was deaf. So they're not averse to coming up with publicity.
Right. Well, I think that's especially Lennon. Lennon, despite his criticism of capitalism, I think he was a really great entrepreneur, and I think he really knew how to promote something. There are people that think he said what he said about Jesus, maybe just get a lot of negative attention, but it sure brought attention. And Lennon, he was constantly saying provocative things, and I think that that to me it has him written all over it. I don't know. This is just speculation, so please, anybody listening out there, I obviously have no idea. Okay? If I'm speculating, I'm thinking that Lennon, especially in 1969, despite people look back now, and of course that the White Album came out in '68 or whatever, so they were off it, but they were winding down. And of course, we know, Let It Be was kind of a Abbey Road, of course, is considered, I guess Abbey Road would have come out maybe after that, right? I'm not sure how it was along the timeline here, but however you look at it, like I said, the little kids, I wasn't that little then, I was like 11, but kids like me, my interest had already waned in the Beatles. I got caught up in the Beatlemania, I loved the early stuff, but then they were sounding different, and to me, I mean, I was hearing, and I wasn't sophisticated enough musically really to understand that maybe that was better. I liked, yeah, and She Loves You. That's what excited me as a little kid. So I think there were a lot of people like that. So I think this did reignite interest at a time when maybe interest in the Beatles was waning. And to whatever degree he could have, we know Lennon had his issues at that time. And but I have to believe that this was something that they decided, much as you talked about the little old lady upstairs, that maybe they said, I don't think anybody else was involved, but the Beatles were marketed so well from the very beginning. And I talked about that one on Borrowed Fame, that marvelous marketing campaign they had when they were coming. I kind of remember it myself as a little kid. They would put these they put these cardboard cutouts in all the record stores. And it started with the back of their heads. And then like the next week, they would turn it, 30 degrees or something. And so eventually by the time they got here, you could see their faces. I mean, that was an incredible marketing campaign that Brian Epstein was thinking up. So, and we know with the girls, it became a real thing eventually, but it started out where they were paying girls to scream and make this attention to begin with. And, people follow once they did. I mean, that was a really great idea. It kind of, it created pandemonium. So they were marketed all along the way. So this is not something that would be that much out of the ordinary. It's just that, and somebody was I think on Coast to Coast when they were talking about, well, how at this point, so could they ever admit it? I don't know. Probably not. It's not like it didn't do anything illegal. It's not like it's a crime, but maybe at this point they think they might look bad if they said that they pulled something over on the public. I mean, I would personally kind of think it was, ingenious, but again, that's my opinion. I just don't think there's any other way to look at it than that.
Yeah. Well, the mystery of the book is not just within the pages of the book, but it's also on the cover of the book, which is very symbolic and a little enigmatic and very artistic. tell us about the cover. Do you happen to have a copy of the book there you could hold up?
Oh, we haven't gotten our copies yet, no. So I don't have any.
Yeah, I don't either, but tell us a little bit about it.
Well, Warren Brown, as you know, who you know, and who Bob worked with as the producer for the Tomorrow Never Knows show for a long time. He's quite the artist, and so he was the logical choice to do it. And we obviously like the way he did it. So, and it looks like, it seems like everyone else does as well. So obviously he can do things that no one else I know can, especially with something like the Beatles, because this is a subject that's you and Bob. He's this is kind of his genre. So he probably, I don't know what other artwork how his other artwork compares, but I would imagine he probably loves the Beatles artwork the most. So he probably does his best work.
Yeah, you can follow him on the Tomorrow Never Knows Facebook page. He's a graphic artist, and he can take images and superimpose them and move them around and blend them into one. He's absolutely incredible at doing that. And the cover of the book is the Sgt. Pepper jacket. And what are the other images that are on it, Don? Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, God, you're asking me. I mean, the back of it is almost like the same that you would see on Sgt. Pepper, which is again one of the clues, isn't it? That why is Paul have his back to the camera? It's kind of an odd thing, very few celebrities don't want to have their face front and center. So it's kind of an odd thing that he was one that chose it. And the front is just kind of a depiction, I think, of the guitar, and I don't have it memorized yet. I don't have a copy of it. So I'm still waiting for that. So I haven't looked at it enough. See, on my, behind me, I have all my books pretty much, but not that one because I don't have a copy of it yet. So
when will it be out? When can people go ahead right now and order it?
Oh, yes, they can buy it. Yeah, they can get it now. But it's just we haven't gotten our copies yet. So so it's actually out before. That's happened, I think, once before today. But so it depends on the publisher. But so yeah, they can order it now. It's out there at all the usual places. I think you can still. It's published by Bear Manor Media, and I think they said something about if you go to Bear Manor Media itself and order it there, that there's a 10% discount or something. I don't know. I think it's still there, but of course it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all the other places. I always tell people for all my books, I just tell them to shop for the best deal. The difference in what we get out of it as writers is negligible. So you get the best deal you can. We just appreciate it.
That's true. That's so true. Well, what have we not talked about that you would love people to know? Something that we haven't touched on that you would love people to know about the book?
What I'd love people to know. Well, again, I think most of the people that are familiar with the work are kind of probably be surprised that I wrote something like this or co-wrote it, because it really doesn't, although obviously there's a controversy there, but it's not the usual kinds of controversies that even in my entertainment book on Borrowed Fame, I was dealing with lots of questions of corruption, and unsolved deaths that, what really happened, that all these people, John Lennon, including John Lennon, of course, I wrote a lot about that there. But in this one, I'm coming out pretty much and saying, I don't want to have any spoilers, but neither Bob or I, believe that Paul is dead. Although, again, nothing's impossible, but it would have to be the most incredible feats in the history of the world to find someone that looked exactly the same and could write these songs. And I think probably the main point that I've made, I think I made it in the book, and I made it on Coast to Coast, and the host liked it there, is that my takeaway from it is, if you believe that Billy Shears or William Campbell, whoever, took over for Paul McCartney, you would have to say, and you and I have talked about this, Jude, because you and I love John. John's our boy, and that's my guy. So it's no accident that I still love the early Beatles, because that was the John-centric period. John was the unquestioned leader. He dominated the songwriting. He dominated the singing. Those are my favorite songs because I like him the best. So, and then he wasn't as prolific later for drugs, and vocal came along and all that really slowed him down. And Paul filled the void. But was it Paul? Because if you look at the timeline, if Paul died in 1966, you would have to say that Billy Shears or William Campbell was the one that took the Beatles over, because it kind of coincided with when Paul became the leader of the Beatles and John took a back seat and became look at Abbey Road or
But White Album, he rules.
well,
He
the
is
White Album, the White Album
he
has
has
plenty of
enough-
John on it. Yeah,
He has 14 tracks, so
the White Album has plenty. It was still split up a lot, and I think that was almost like the last big output from John, other than like Across the Universe, which is maybe his last great song of the Beatles. But if you look at like Sgt. Pepper's or Magical Mystery Tour, those are dominated by Paul. I mean, John still has, In the Life, obviously, incredible song, but again, he has that middle eight is Paul. But so you would have to say, God, whoever this guy was better than Paul McCartney, because he wrote all these, Let It Be and Long and Winding Road and all these songs that people think of now. So I that's what I took away from it, just thinking about it, is that if you believe this, you would have to say that the imposter was more talented, was a more prolific songwriter, and was able to be, I guess,
course,
alpha enough.
it might explain Honey Pie.
Yeah, it's the one thing about the argument that, because you and I've talked about this before too. I have a lot of problems with McCartney's solo career, especially. But and I've never seen anybody that wrote so many great songs, but also wrote so many songs that I hate. I really hate. And silly love songs, Let Him In, Coming Up. I know some people like those songs, but I just roll my eyes when I hear that. And I know John Lennon did as well. And that was like kind of a bone of contention between them. But was it the same person? So if someone want to make that argument with me, well, maybe that's the new guy. And this is the way he writes. But I don't know. It's I think it's fun to look at it that way, because there, like you said, Honey Pie or whatever these ones, there's a lot of those songs where you just kind of,
Or the whole concept of Magical Mystery Tour. That Billy Shears, what was he thinking?
yeah. Oh, and of course Billy Shears is mentioned, in the song. They're kind of allude to him being Ringo. So they're talking about Billy Shears. So but I don't know. Then you have the whole. Yeah, it is fun because you have a whole. I've seen videos where because I get it mixed up, Billy Shears and William Campbell. I think they're the same person, but then there's one of them is supposedly still alive, and they supposedly have visited his home, but it can't be obviously Paul or the Fall. And they like supposedly went to his house and like caught him, and he was just like kind of smiling at them, like they said, "Are you really Paul McCartney?" So I don't know how that fits in, because then who would the other guy be? So it's kind of convoluted, but that's the nature of conspiracy theories.
But we are here to say, JDs and Lents, that we are kidding around about this stuff. We're just having a laugh. We're not dissing Paul. And we have no idea one way or the other if Paul is dead or Paul is alive.
Yeah, no. And I get in trouble with all the stuff I talk about in conspiracies and everything. I said, look, I have no theories. I'm just telling you facts. I don't speculate. I don't claim to know for sure anything. I don't know what the hell's going on about a lot of stuff. So I sure don't know about this. But I'm just saying that it would have to be really, and I think we need to look at it too. What was the motivation? Because it's not like there weren't other big rock stars that died. I mean, rock stars were dying a lot in the early to mid 60s. Buddy Holly, starting with Buddy Holly. You had, a lot, Patsy Cline, there was a big country star. Lots of songs, lots of people, Johnny Burnett, that had hit, certainly not at Paul McCartney's level, but Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones, they didn't institute a cover up for him. Now, McCartney was more, I guess, instrumental to the Beatles than Brian Jones was maybe to the Stones, although he founded them and gave them their name. And but why would they feel that this is like unprecedented? They would have to, pretend that he didn't die and hire. So the whole thing is very kind of weird that you would do, because you could arguably say that most of the time, we saw it when John Lennon died, his records sold like hotcakes. Same thing with Elvis, and when Jim Croce, one of my favorites. I mean, he was kind of a marginal figure until he died, and then he went through the roof. And so it's a good career move. So in the case of the Beatles, uh, I don't quite understand, because they might have been able to even play off of that and get even more attention, that and replace him with whoever. But certainly John was still there, and could write, and George could have stepped up and written a lot more songs. So I don't really understand why they would have found it necessary to do that. So the really the essential part of the theory makes little sense to me, because it never happened before, and nobody else ever tried to. You'd have more said, you have some people claiming some celebrities faked their death, from Elvis to Tupac Shakur and Andy Kaufman. That's been out there. But this is the only case I know of where death happened and they covered it up and replaced him with, with an exact lookalike. This is really stands alone by itself.
It's really intriguing, and I think people are going to enjoy, because Laurence Juber, I believe, is one of the people that wrote for your book.
Yeah.
And not to mention Ivor Davis, who
Ivor
with
Davis.
the Beatles in 1964 and 1965.
Yes.
I knew Paul quite well. He's chimed in on it. So we've got some people who really know or knew, depending on which side of the fence you're on, Paul. And I think it will be well worth people's time to read this. So tell us where people can get the book and how they can follow both Bob and you on social media, because Bob Wilson is the co-author of this. We want everyone to know. We wish Bob could have been with us today, but he couldn't, and he is in our thoughts.
Well, Bob is not quite as out there as I am. I never say no to anybody, and I'm always in front of the camera, so it doesn't matter to me. Bob's a little more reclusive, but this was his idea, and I don't want people. This is really his idea for the book, and he's at the heart of it. He's not as present on social media as I have. He's on Facebook. You can find. I don't know, but of course it's a common name, but I'm not
Bob
sure.
Wilson.
Is it Bob Wilson? So if you find it, you can put that link up. But I'm all over and I don't think Bob's anywhere else. I don't think he's on Twitter or anything like that. But certainly he hopes to bring his show back. I know, Beatles show, and when I'm going to go to another radio network at some point here down the road, maybe we're going to try to see if he can get a show on there. But I don't know when that'll be. I'm on my website is donaldjeffries.media. I write very frequently on Substack, and I ask people to subscribe to me there. It's donaldjeffries.substack.com. It's the last free speech platform that I have. I'm shadow banned everywhere else. I'm on Twitter at Don Jeffries. You can follow me there, but they take followers away from me constantly. Not a conspiracy theory. I had somebody the other day tell me, I've had to follow you 8 different times, at least. So they do it. They really do that. So they hold back what people like me can do. Same thing with Facebook. I've got the maximum amount of friends there, but if I post something controversial, or even if I just if I want to promote it, even the Beatles book, they really hold down who sees it. Yep, I posted something about my mom on Mother's Day yesterday, and I can get hundreds of responses. The algorithm knows what I'm trying to do, and if I'm trying to talk about something controversial, or if I'm just trying to promote something, anything like a book writing, an interview, anything like that, it holds it back. So I ask people to please subscribe to me on Substack. donaldjeffries.substack.com. That's one place I am growing, and you can find out everything there, because I promote everything there now because I have to. Can't promote too much on Substack or Twitter. So I'm easy to, if you do a search for me, you'll probably find out more than you want to know.
Okay, that is great. And book is on Amazon and all booksellers, right? They can do that. Well, this has been interesting, Lanea. I mean, does this bring back a lot of memories?
Yes, it certainly does. This is quite a controversial topic, and I've done some reading on it and myself, and there's a lot of information there, and I really find the topic intriguing, Don, and I think you did a great job of laying out the facts and allowing people to form their own opinion. My opinion is it's hogwash, but who am I to say?
Oh no, you've done it now.
Hey, this is my attempt to get some publicity here.
I only know about the guy behind me. That is all I
You know about him.
knew. John,
so-
John, and more John.
So Don, will you be appearing at any of the Beatle festivals that are coming up? There are several, Abbey Road on the River, and
If they come to the Washington DC area, I don't travel well at all. So if they come in this area, I'll be there. But if I have to travel somewhere, I don't go to JFK conference or anything like that. I'll do Zoom stuff. But I'm just a really bad traveler because I barely sleep in my own bed. So I just don't sleep well. And if I go somewhere strange, I'm not going to sleep. So
sure.
it turns out to be a miserable experience if you can't sleep, right?
That sounds very familiar.
Yes. Well, it was a delight to have you here, and we wish you and Bob Wilson all the success in the world on this topic. I think it sounds like a tremendous book. I can't wait to see it and relish in Warren Brown's cover. He is quite an artist. So
Yes, he is.
what a fantastic project that you've had to work
Well, it was
on.
wonderful meeting you, and you and Jude are competing with each other for beautiful smiles. You're both smiling all the time. It's great to talk to people that are always smiling. I love that.
Well, we had a great time. It has been so much fun, and truly everybody, we are just joking around and having a great time. None of us have any clue about whether this was real or not real, and we'll never know. I'm guessing it's one of those mysteries that we'll never have a definitive answer on. But if you want to look at some other things that we will never have a definitive answer on, look at some of Don's other books too,
Yes.
because
I kind of specialize in those subjects.
yes, they're very interesting, very intriguing books, and we do invite you to take a look at those. Don, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
It's always a pleasure, Jude. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Don. Thank you.
Take care.
So that winds up another episode of She Said, She Said. And Jude and I are excited to announce that we just won our 10,000 downloads badge. Woo! So we sincerely appreciate all of you that listened to the podcast over the last 6 years and who have taken the time to share all of our adventures. Speaking of adventures, Jude and I have a new adventure coming up in a couple of weeks. We are going to be at Indiana's most historic gym, The Pit in Evansville, Indiana. This has become my other life and has put all of my cookbooks on the back burner, so to speak. If you want to drop by The Pit on Saturday morning, June 3rd, Jude and I will be there, and we will be signing books. The proceeds from the books will go to support the Pit Power Team, who is competing in July, I think July 8th in Las Vegas. They are the largest team coming from one gym in the nation, and we're very proud to have these very, very strong men competing on behalf of our gym. So come and see Jude and I. We'll be on the sides, not doing lifting things. We will be signing things and talking to people about the Beatles and food. So we would love to see you there. June 3rd, the Pit Barbell Club in Evansville, Indiana. Until then, here's to food for thought, food for the soul, and food for the love of rock and roll.
Ta-ra and shine on.